Monday, February 17th meeting of Goldsboro City Council. I appreciate everybody being here. For the camera, for the record, we have a full room, and so I think that is a good thing. So we will begin with our call to order and welcome. So welcome. And then we'll lead with an invocation from Archbishop Anthony Slater, our fire chaplain, who will be quickly departing actually due to business. So all would rise.
Good evening, everyone. Shall we pray? Our Father and our God, we thank you for this moment that we can call on you, even prepared to do business today as a community. Father, hear our voices as we share our concerns. Father, we ask you to judge all that has been spoken tonight and help us all begin to go forward in our lives in this great city of Goldsboro. We thank you for what has been. We thank you for where we're going. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Start safe travels this evening. For those that are aware, Archbishop Slater serves as a fire chaplain here in the city of Goldsboro, but also for some other departments in the surrounding area, and sadly will be assisting a department with a loss in the coming hours. So safe travels, sir. Thank you for your service. All right, if you join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you'd please conduct a roll call.
Mayor Gaylor.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Jones.
Present.
Councilman Boyette.
Present.
Councilwoman Taylor.
Present.
Councilwoman Matthews.
Present.
Councilwoman Weeks.
Present.
Councilman White.
Present. All right, all present and accounted for. We'll move to adoption of the agenda. Council, the agenda has been prepared and presented. Are there any alterations or amendments? Madam Clerk, Mr. Livingston, is there anything that I'm missing, adding, or addition that y'all briefed me on? No? Yes, ma'am. Pro Tem.
Yes, I would like to take a look at under old business 8.1, organization study discussion. I am going to appeal to the council that we table this because is the consultant here to talk with us?
No, ma'am.
Okay, the consultant is not here to speak with us, and there are several questions that need to be posed regarding this organization study discussion. So I am asking the council to please vote with me to table this to another date until we can get the consultant. The city manager has also sent out some concerns about the organization study. So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read or review all that, but I don't feel comfortable discussing this. I understand that Councilwoman Weeks had some questions as well, and I don't think that we would do this justice by trying to discuss this tonight. So I would ask the council that we table this item on our agenda.
Okay. So, council, is there any further discussion of items to change? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the removal of item 8.1 as was stated.
Do we need a second?
We do.
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and properly seconded to approve the agenda with the removal of 8.1. Is there any discussion? For or against? All right, hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. All right.
Thank you, council.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right, so 8.1 is removed. We will move forward with the agenda with that modification. Item 4.1, St. Baldrick's Proclamation. So, Madam Clerk, as I understand it, we do have some folks that will be coming forward for this one. Council, this does not require a vote. I will simply read the proclamation, and then we will ask those present to receive the proclamation to come forward, give them an opportunity to speak, and then we will continue conducting business. So, St. Baldrick's Foundation Month Proclamation. Whereas the Goldsboro Elks, in partnership with UNC Health Wayne, host our city's annual St. Baldrick's Cuts for Cures event, offering our community a chance to participate in the fight to find a cure for all childhood cancers. And whereas over 400,000 children are diagnosed with cancer each year, in the U.S. alone, more children die of childhood cancer than all other diseases combined, yet less than 4% of government research dollars are devoted to childhood cancers. And whereas the memory of Ms. Jennifer Kuykendall as St. Baldrick's team leader and Shavee shall be honored as an example of how one person can make a difference in their community and have fun and look good while doing it. Whereas the St. Baldrick's Cut for Cures event is a community gathering that supports the work of the St. Baldrick's Foundation, the world's largest volunteer-driven fundraising program for childhood cancer research. Now therefore be it resolved that the Goldsboro City Council does hereby proclaim the month of March as St. Baldrick's Foundation Month in the city of Goldsboro, North Carolina, and urge all citizens to show their support for the St. Baldrick's Foundation by donating online at stbaldricks.org, attending or participating as a Shavee in our city's annual St. Baldrick's Cut for Cures event on Saturday, March 22nd, 2025, from 2 to 5 p.m. at the Hub in downtown Goldsboro. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal of the city of Goldsboro. This the 17th day of February 2025. If those to receive the proclamation would just come forward. I'm going to hand it to one of y'all and let you decide. Okay, I'm not. There you go. If you would please just introduce everybody, and then we already said the time, date, and location, but if you'd like to begin.
All right,
and here, for the microphone.
Okay. So this is just a small amount of our team that are working for the Cuts for Cures event this year. There is representation from the Goldsboro Elks as well as from UNC Health Wayne. And our event this year is going to be Saturday, March 22nd at the Hub from 2 to 5 p.m. If you want to find out more information about our event, you can go to stbaldricks.org and you can put in Goldsboro or our zip code, and it'll pull up information about the event. There's still time to sign up as a Shavee. If you have some hair that may need to be cut in a month himself. But also the day of the event, you can just come out and have some fun. It's a free event. There'll be food, there'll be games, there'll be free kids activities, there'll be music, and then there'll be a lot of people, probably people you recognize, getting their heads shaved, and it's all to raise money to find a cure for childhood cancer. Thank you.
And for the record, I'll be one of the ones donating to make sure that Dorf leaves with no eyebrows. So. There we go. Perfect. And if you would, hold that right there in the middle. And here, you're going to slide up front now. You can see, and then I'll slide right here behind you. Perfect. That'll work. Thank you, everybody, for your time tonight, and that goes with y'all.
Just so you know, there are levels of Shavees that go through the process. I've been doing this this is my 15th year with one gap in the 15 years. I put a challenge out to everybody to try to collect more money than I do. That's what these are for.
Your hair grows back.
My hair does grow back. There's a little bit of a halo on top.
All right, council, we will move forward with item 5.1. It's a CZ 1124 Wooten Development Company. The public hearing was held at our last meeting. It was closed at that time. And now let's hear a brief from our planning director. I know there's been a lot of work that's happened on this one to try and make it, to try and bring some things together. Council, there are a few different action items that we can choose to do. We can either choose to vote by motion of council to reopen the public hearing, and if there are those that did not speak last time that would like to speak, then we can allow them to come forward. It'll be the will of the council at that time. So, Mr. Livingston, I'll hand it over to Mr. Helmer unless you have any other comments. No, Mr. Helmer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. The first case before us tonight is conditional zoning 1124 Wooten Development Company. The project is located at the corner of Maplewood Drive and North Berkeley Boulevard. I'll briefly describe the project again. This is a 1.42 acre tract of land owned by Wooten Development Company. It's currently in an office and institutional one and a neighborhood business zoning district. The proposed zoning would be neighborhood business conditional zoning district. The comprehensive land use plan identifies this property as being suitable for mixed use and medium density residential. The request is for a change in zoning for the subject property from office institution to neighborhood business for the construction of a multi-tenant commercial retail strip center. In your packet is a copy of the plan. This is the future land use plan that identifies the majority of the property being within a mixed use land use category, with a very small portion being in O&I and a small portion being in the mixed density, mixed use residential to the south and east. So the Office of Institutional Neighborhood Business District is established to provide for development of office and community institutions that have similar development characteristics and require locations close to residential and commercial uses. This district discourages commercial uses and forbids industrial uses. It is intended to encourage development of office and institutional uses that provide a step down in intensity between high development and nearby residential. So it's actually serving as a type of buffer, if you will. The neighborhood business is established to provide services and commercial development needed to serve primarily the adjoining neighborhoods. This district is intended to promote the development of small pedestrian-oriented establishments whose character and use is compatible with nearby residential neighborhoods. The maximum building gross area is 24,000 square feet. Neighborhood business conditional zoning district, which is proposed, again, the purpose of this district is to provide for services and commercial development needed to serve primarily adjoining neighborhoods. Surrounding zoning includes neighborhood business and general business to the north, office and institutional and residential R9 to the south, residential R9 to the east, and to the west is office and institutional 1. Next slide, please. Okay, there's a zoning map here showing to the north and the east is the neighborhood business zoning district with the retail strip center. That property is also abutting the existing neighborhood to the south and east. Also to the south and west and across the street from the Maplewood Drive is the existing office and institutional facility there, so at the entrance to this subdivision. So I think that the critical thing here is there's a list of uses that can be considered for approval in both the existing office and institutional and neighborhood business zoning district, as well as the neighborhood business conditional district. And what the uses to the right are the ones that the applicant is proposing to permit. And that would be commercial retail center only. All uses permitted in the neighborhood business zoning district would be considered. However, he's excluding bingo parlors, internet cafes, sweepstake facilities, and electronic electronic gaming operations. So this is a condition that the property owner is placing on himself, so that those uses could not be considered for future approval without first coming back to this board. So, but on the left are some of the uses that could be considered for tenants in that space, and some of them are probably not as practical as others, obviously, but so the neighborhood business would allow for ABC stores, bakery, banks, barber, beauty shops, furniture stores, copy services, clinical, medical, and therapeutic offices, daycare centers, funeral homes and offices, business. But obviously it's a retail center, so more than likely it'll be the typical types of uses that you would see in a development such as this one. But again, the takeaway is they are excluding bingo parlors, internet cafes, sweepstake facilities, electronic gaming operations from being permitted for future approvals at this location. The city's land use plan locates these parcels within a mixed use medium density residential portion of the land use designation. Neighborhood business zoning district is a corresponding zoning district to the mixed use one. This is basically just saying that there is a not exact correlation between the zoning map and the comprehensive land use plan. So that's really just making note of that. Again, the comprehensive land use plan identifies the property as being mixed use.
Hey, Mark, could you speak into the mic a little bit more? I think people are.
Yeah, so the comprehensive, their future land use plan shows this property is currently being suitable for mixed uses. So a commercial strip center in some ways could be considered a mix of uses, if you will. The technical review committee has not seen a plan yet, but once the conditional zoning is approved or a decision made on that, we will then forward the plan to the technical review committee prior to issuing site plan approval, administrative site plan approval. So I'm not sure why this is in here, but this is the property immediately to the north and east, and what they're essentially, I think what they're proposing is something very similar to what they have there now. So this is the picture showing the conditions of the property towards the rear on the day that we took the photograph. So really what they're telling us here is they're telling us that the facade will be of similar quality to this one, with brick and some decorative block at the bottoms, with concrete sidewalks along the front. So all right. The applicant has submitted a revised site plan documenting the agreed upon site conditions. That includes the fence around the proposed storm pond and removal of the proposed driveway on Maplewood Drive. I've included a copy of that plan in the application. So they had to do quite a bit of revisions to the plan. And what they've essentially done was they moved at one point there was one row of parking in the back. The building was actually pushed further back into the site. With this current version of the plan, they've moved more parking to the rear. They've moved the structure further up towards the public right-of-way on Berkeley, and they've basically aligned it with the adjacent and existing retail center there. Also, the parking lines up, so the site just flows better. I think it'll have a better it'll just look more natural the way they've done this. What they've also done is they've removed the driveway on Maplewood Drive, and now they have the parking is now has access from Berkeley Boulevard only, so traffic would pull into Berkeley Boulevard, the driveway there, and then they'd come around the site on a private driveway accessing the parking to the rear. And then there's also access on the other side of the building so that there's complete circulation throughout the site. Also, on the very top of this plan, you'll see the pond there with a fence around it. So these are the two major concerns that were brought up at the last meeting. This is actually just the landscape plan portion of it as well.
Mark,
Yes.
just for clarification purposes for the council and audience, please. So this is a rezoning application, correct?
Yeah, it's conditional zoning, yes.
Hold on, you're getting ahead of me though. I want to make
Okay.
sure the steps are understood, okay?
Okay.
So it's a rezoning application,
Correct.
correct? The applicant is willing to place certain conditions on the use because certain permitted uses are available if the zoning's changed to the new zoning, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he's saying, okay, if you'll do this, but we won't put these certain uses in there.
That's correct.
All right, he's not asking for a special use, he's essentially saying we're gonna use it for these things, but we will telling you, we're willing to put this condition that we can't use it for tattoo or whatever else those were, is that correct?
That is correct.
I just wanna make sure everybody understood sort of what was being asked for, because I thought it was a little bit confusing, just wanna make it a little more straightforward.
Yeah, so with the conditional zoning, you can actually place conditions on the uses as well as physical site improvements can be conditionalized as well, because you're approving the zoning based on the merits of the plan. So it allows a little bit more input on the site planning process, part of that process. So you do have some oversight on how that is to occur. And again, we got some good feedback last month, and I think the developer has addressed most of the concerns.
Council, any comments or questions for Mr. Helmer at this stage?
I do have one quick question.
Go ahead, Council.
In the beginning of your brief, you did state that it's majority. Which is it? Majority O&I or majority business mixed use?
Well, the comprehensive land use plan is calling for mixed use, which neighborhood business is not necessarily a mixed use, right? So neighborhood business is kind of, it's a very special zoning district that allows for certain commercial uses in close proximity to residential.
But as it stands right now, it's O&I.
Yes, yeah, well, yeah.
Mark,
Yes.
if you'll pull back up the map that has the zoning around it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
gonna get there.
Councilmember White's asking for what's around it.
So if we go back and look at the plan here, zoning map, so this is comprehensive land use plan here, which the purple represents a mix of uses. So what the applicant is proposing is to extend the existing neighborhood business further down Berkeley Boulevard and thus rezoning the property that's highlighted there from O&I to neighborhood business. So it's not exactly in line with what the comprehensive plan calls for, but then again, this is a 10-year-old plan that, when developed, may have not envisioned this property being a retail center. So,
Mr. Helmer, from the additional conditions that are being discussed for this one, the neighborhood business property that is in that picture, I guess that would be just northeast, if that's northeast.
yes, sir.
Are those conditions on that parcel?
I'm
Or is
not
that-
aware of any. That
Right.
that is a really older, much
Yeah,
older
yeah.
development than, and
That was just-
traditional zoning wasn't around then. But some of the uses that could be considered for approval there could be considered special use, which would
Fair.
require this board approval. So
Okay. So at this point, what is being considered would be considered more restrictive than that one?
I think yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. All right. Council, any other comments, questions at this point? Then we've got to make a decision about how we want to proceed. All right. Hearing none, council, there are folks here that with this volume of people in the room, I think it's worth asking. Council, do we want to reopen the public hearing for those that have not spoken, to give them an opportunity under our procedures for public hearing? Do we want to make a motion to approve, deny? What's the will of council?
I would like to make a motion that if we do have constituents that would like to speak, have the option.
Second.
All right, motion been made and properly seconded to reopen the public hearing. And this would be for those that have not already had the opportunity to speak, right, Councilman? Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Just making sure. Is there any debate on that? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. Motion to reopen the public hearing for those that have not yet had an opportunity to speak. Please, those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. The motion to reopen the public hearing passes unanimously. So with that, we will reopen the public hearing for CZ 1124. Again, this is a reopening of the public hearing for CZ 1124. If there are those who did not have an opportunity to speak last time that would like to come forward and be heard, if you'd please approach the clerk at this time. Second call. This is a public hearing for CZ 1124. If there are those that did not have an opportunity to come forward and speak last time, we invite you to do so. Third and final call for the same. All right. With that, we'll close. Like I said, I don't have to smack the gavel on that. So with that, we will close the reopened public hearing. I'm glad that we did that, though. I think that's always the right decision to take. So with that, council, we have deliberations. We have questions. I see Councilman Boyette's hand up. Is there anyone specific that you'd like to bring forward for your question, or is it general comments?
No, I'm
Or is
sorry, I
yours?
might have skipped ahead. I was going to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
So, considering the concessions that the developers made to satisfy the concerns that were expressed in the last public hearing, and also taking into consideration that the land use plan is over a decade old for that particular area, and knowing what we know about the future there, I would make a motion that we accept the recommendation of staff and Planning Commission and approve this item as presented, along with the restrictions that Mr. Helmer mentioned, along with the consistency statement as well,
Okay.
for approval.
And the site plan will be part of that.
And the site plan as presented, and then whatever else is left to go before staff for approval, subject to, such as lighting and all that good stuff.
All right, so just to restate for the record, the motion has been brought forward by Councilman Boyette to approve the conditional zoning application with the conditions attached to it, and to include the consistency statement as well as the revised site plan. Is that correct? Madam Clerk, is that correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes,
first
ma'am.
Before we do that?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Helmer might can answer it for me. I just have two quick questions. Number one, on the back fence line, what kind of vegetation will be there? Back
Yeah, so
fence
there's
line?
existing fence and existing vegetation. So the applicant has shown he's going to retain as much of that existing vegetation as possible. The way our landscape ordinance works is that it does allow for staff to evaluate that landscaping at the time of CO. So if we know, he's claiming, all this stuff is good landscaping, but if we go out there and of course it's scrub brush and it's just not desirable, or if it's not effective at screening, then staff can then at that time ask for additional landscaping on prior to actually issuing site plan approval. So, but I've got a photograph of it, I believe.
And then, Mr. Helmer, while you're doing that, if we vote on this, just for clarity, we've cut off that entranceway back into Maplewood.
Yes, ma'am.
There's no way down the road that could be revised or
No,
anything.
not
It
without
would be
an approved driveway
Okay.
permit from the city.
Those are my two questions. I'll make a second that we approve it.
Okay. Motion's been made and properly seconded that we approve the revised site plan and conditional zoning application contingent upon the acceptance of the conditions that have been stated during the meeting, and also to include the consistency statement therewith. Ron, am I missing anything?
No, just long as, again, as the applicant consents to those conditions as well, then you're set.
Perfect. So it would be a approval contingent upon him acknowledging them? All right, perfect. Ms. Getz, do I need to restate it, or do you feel like that's clear as
I
mud?
think I'm okay.
All right, perfect. So with that motion made and properly seconded, is there any further debate?
Yeah, I just have a couple of something that I just want to state.
Yes, Councilman.
Given that the residents have been there for a while and that it's a well-developed neighborhood, I would like to try to protect their investment as well as trying to offer the investor an opportunity to grow his business. I think that O&I will help with that because O&I is to the right and the front of the actual lot, which will keep in concert. Also, I've taken into consideration that there's businesses, gas stations, and a plethora of other things on the other side which affords that community the amenities, and I can't foresee anything that will actually enhance them in the business world. So I'm asking that we just consider as a board the investment that those constituents have made in their property in their neighborhoods, and O&I will still allow the investor to develop that land and put something there, as well as allow the investment to grow behind them.
Points taken. Council, any other comments at this time? Yes, ma'am.
So with Councilman White just saying that I was in agreement to approving as was stated, but with that consideration is, Councilman Boyer, are you willing to amend your motions for that, or do we need to have more discussion about it?
If it's in order, Mayor, I can speak to that.
Yeah, please go right ahead.
So my line of thought when we were figuring this along the way, of course, this property is currently is O&I. The neighboring property that's already there is already neighborhood business. So the purpose of the developer wanting to change this one so that it matched the other building is what afforded us the opportunity to restrict the access into Maplewood. So I felt like that was a win. But the other thing that I pointed out, well, so far as the developer is concerned, if there's going to be zoning for two separate classifications of zoning for two buildings on basically the same parcel, it doesn't make a lot of sense not to have them both the same. So if he has a vacant spot and somebody rides by and calls a number and says, okay, I see this spot for rent, I want to do X, Y, Z. And the developer has to say, well, you'll have to wait for a spot to come open in this building because that one you can't do it. That's confusing. But to take that a step further, as I also pointed out, the comp plan is 12 years old for there, and knowing how all that works and knowing what's going on transportation wise and in the future and is happening out there now, I could not in my wildest dreams imagine when the comp plan is updated that those zoning classifications up and down that corridor is not going to go even higher than what it currently is for the other building. So if you got O&I and you got neighborhood business on a 12-year-old plan, by the time the next plan comes around, I would envision it probably to be shopping center. I don't think it would go GB all the way, in my opinion, because if it went all the way GB, then the council would lose a lot of its ability to have a say-so in what it is if it's GB. So my line of thinking is we should make them the same for the benefit of the developer, and because the neighborhood gained what they got out of it was the voluntary closing off of Maplewood. But since we know what's happening there as we speak with growth and the corridor is going to go up in classification anyhow, I don't see that we're doing anything to hinder anyone. I'm sorry that was a long response, but I got it all out there.
But I would argue that the aspect that you just mentioned, we're looking at it from the business side of it. But I'm looking at it from the constituent side of it with their investment that they made into the actual property, and they've been there for a while. So I think that we do owe the constituents, who are also taxpayers and a large part of our tax-paying base in the city, that we need to really take that into consideration about our constituents who live out there. And O&I will not hinder the developer from developing. It might hinder the type of business that can go there, but it will not stop a development or a business going there, period. And just for the sake of addressing what you said, it's not hard if you call and they say, yo, you can't put that type of business here. You have to wait till something else is open. But it's just a phone call, because that's happening all around the city, because I'm looking for a place and they say you can't put it there. And so we go and look somewhere else. So it's not just to argue back and forth, but I do see the hesitation and the apprehension of the constituents out there in Maplewood, because they have put an investment as well. And it's been there for a while, and we're getting ready to go back and ask those investment payers to pay more taxes, more water rates, but then disregard how they feel.
Mayor.
Yes.
This is very healthy discussion, and if I would be allowed to make one more comment, because this is constructive.
Yeah, go ahead.
The other, you're right in your train of thought related to that issue, but the other component for me was knowing that in another year's time, this is all irrelevant, reasonably speaking, because the zoning classification in everything I understand about planning is going to change anyhow, and all of this is going to be irrelevant. So to me, we're just taking care of business. It's going to happen either way, and I do not feel like, and that's the purpose of healthy discussion, I do not feel like that if a use was allowed in this parcel, but it wasn't allowed in this parcel when they're literally next door to each other. Me personally, I don't see that, but I recognize that you have a different opinion, and that's healthy to be able to have these sort of discussions. I appreciate that. I still will stand with my motion that's been properly seconded, but certainly I appreciate the input.
Council, any further comments or questions at this time? I will say, and this is it's good evidence that dialogue can happen and needs to happen and must happen, because when you're trying to lay out an economic development plan, you're trying to lay out a forecast for a city, you're trying to protect your neighborhoods while also, spurring development, it is a tough balance. And you may see that council is able to decide with a neighborhood on item A, they may have to side with a developer on item B. It is a complicated balance. This, what I will give a lot of credit to Mr. Helmer and to our planning department on this one, it absolutely could be developed as O&I right now and have some of the features that are overall not considered desirable, i.e. the cut in off of Maplewood Drive and some other things. But because we brought it forward in this way, we were able to shape it to make it more amenable to the neighborhood, to protect the neighborhood as well. So I'm glad that we've been able to have this conversation. Mr. Helmer, thank you for kind of trying to shift this thing in a way that it has as little impact as possible on the neighborhood while also balancing the need for economic development in the city and around the city. It's a hard balance on every one of these. So I just wanted to say that as well for the record. So, Council, any other comments, questions, concerns at this time?
Last thing, and I do agree with Councilman Boyette. This is healthy discussion, but I just out of curiosity, I would like to know: have we even approached the developer to try to develop in another place?
I've not asked the developer to buy a different piece of property.
Well, I mean, I understand that we might not ask the developer to buy another piece of property, but have we been trying to actually make the rest of our city more attractive to developers?
That is specifically the reason for the business development plan. That is specifically
and the reason I asked that question is because when we did get briefed in the actual retreat, she said that we need to start developing other parts of the city. Yeah. So that's the reason that drove the question that I just asked.
It's a
because we are in my opinion, we are developing just one side of the city while forgetting about the other side. And I understand there's a plethora of reasons why we say that we won't develop the other side or we can't develop the other side, and one of them is crime. But we do know statistics say that poverty is one of the major factors of crime. So until we begin to put things in other parts of the city, then we'll continue to have that same excuse because we don't give them a reason to grow and be vibrant. And that's the only reason I asked that question.
You're spot on. It's the reason that I certainly advocated for and ultimately council supported doing the business development plan, because this is a good example. This is organically happening development. No one in the city approached the landowner and said, hey, we want you to put a shopping center here. It happens on its own because they see an opportunity for economic impact and to make a profit. That's the nature of how development works. Where we as a city have been struggling for some time, and actually Mr. Livingston and I talk about this about every day because it's a frustrating reality, is how do you spur along development in a part of town that is not organically happening on its own? And what can you use with CDBG funding? What can you use with allowing the city to acquire tracts of property and then market those tracts of property for specific development and be able to incentivize in some way? That is the point. That is the point of that study, because, and without, certainly not going to call out specific neighborhoods or specific tracts right now, but there's parts of the city that are asking for help and are asking for investment. And right now, the economics around it don't organically create it. And so it is something that we are aggressively wanting to pursue as a council, and I'll give Mr. Livingston some credit trying to pull together Ms. Darlington and Department of Commerce and Office of Rural Planning to try and get a specific plan in place that this council can then vote on and get behind. Again, long-winded answer, but it's the right way to go about things. Council, yes, ma'am.
Yes, I this may be a little off, but I did discuss with two council persons the fact that there are vacant developments on Berkeley Boulevard. There are areas that are vacant in there between Little Caesars. There's right on Berkeley Boulevard. There are vacancies, areas right in there between the Christian Soldier and Aaron's. And if we could kind of look at those two, but I know that that's apples and oranges, or, but maybe we can kind of take a look at those things too, or if the city has anything to do with it. But we got so many developments that they've gone out of business, and there's several things there that they could develop there instead of farther down Berkeley.
And some of that is dependent on a property owner being willing to sell to allow someone else to buy, or being in a position to be able to sell. As you get into ownership issues, it's a whole different thing. Okay. But simply being able to sell to where the developer could, it's a complicated thing. I'm glad we're having this discussion because it's the right time, because we know that we have other parts of the city that need investment. I saw your hand go up. No, you're good. All right. Council, a motion's been made and properly seconded. We're still in the debate process. Is there any further debate on the motion as presented, which, for refresher, the motion was made to approve the revised site plan with the additional conditional zoning requirements and with the consistency statement? All right, hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing one, motion does pass. All right. CZ 1124 is approved with the conditions stated in this meeting and with the revised site plan. All right. So now, Mr. Helmer, if you would please guide us on 5.2.
This case is, we're calling the Shannon Avenue Public Right-of-Way Closure. Okay, here we go. The property in question is located Kyler Best Road, which is NC SR 1565. It's southeast 297.96 feet along Shannon Avenue to its terminus. So that I'll rephrase that here in a minute. So the petitioners for this project are Robert Strickland, Horace Best, and Judson Pope, and they're requesting that 297.96 feet long and 60 feet wide right-of-way known as Shannon Avenue be permanently closed, and the property revert back to the adjacent property owners, which they are. The petitioners listed above are the owners of the property abutting the public right-of-way as identified on Wayne County tax parcel map. The right-of-way closure plat has also been created by Carnegie Land Surveyors and Engineers. This is again a 60-foot public right-of-way. However, no paving, curbs, gutters, stormwater, or public utilities have been constructed within the 60-foot right-of-way requested for permanent closure. Again, this is the property here, showing basically it's open pasture or farmland for agriculture. It's been used for agricultural purposes. Again, the actual roadway improvements were never constructed. So petitioners desire the city to abandon the existing public right-of-way so that they can use it for designing a site for commercial development in accordance with the City of Goldsboro's Unified Development Ordinance. Preps Inc. recently received approval from City Council for a change of zone from property located at the corner of West New Hope Road and Kyler Best, and that rezoning was from Neighborhood Business Zoning District to the Neighborhood Business Conditional Zoning District to construct and operate a convenience store with fuel sales. City Planning has also received site plans for the convenience store and support the proposal to abandon the public right-of-way. And this is actually the surveyed plat created by the engineer showing the actual right-of-way being split down the middle and reverting back to the adjoining property owners. Also should make note that there are some existing easements out there for utilities. So any existing utility easements that the city and or other private utilities may possess, those will still be in effect and will not be abandoned with this right-of-way closure. Again, this is the site-specific plan that we reviewed a few months back, showing a private driveway at the location where this right-of-way currently exists. And because it's a private driveway, we're recommending that the right-of-way be closed, since the city has no desire for a public street at this location. Any utilities been shown on the street closing and recombination plat will be retained by the city. The property owners adjacent to the closed street right-of-way shall take right title and interest as provided in accordance with GS 160A-299C. As may be further illustrated on the street closing and recombination plat that I just showed you. Closing is conditioned on the recombination of the lots deemed sufficient by the city, certified copy of the order, and the street closing and recombination plat showing the right-of-way area shall be filed in the Office of the Register of Deeds. It is recommended that City Council conduct a public hearing and adopt the attached ordinance to close a 297.96 foot long and 60 foot wide right-of-way known as Shannon Avenue. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the project engineers here as well.
Council, do we have any questions for Mr. Helmer on this particular right-of-way that wasn't? Hearing none, I am trying to get back to where I know how to properly phrase the motion. Give me just a moment, please. Pardon. I apologize for the pause. I'm still getting used to it as well. All right, there we go. thought I was looking at, but I was still looking at the previous one. All right, council, we have a resolution in front of us to authorize the abandonment of the right-of-way and handing over the property back to the individual owners. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, will entertain a motion to approve or deny.
Make a motion.
We need to open the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. There has to be I'm sorry. I apologize. All right. So this is why I need to take screenshots ahead of time. All right, everybody. Corrections in place. Council, we will, you said the developer is here?
Yes, sir.
All right. It is our practice that after the brief, we allow the developer to come answer any specific questions. At that time, we will open the public hearing for item 5.2, the Shannon Avenue public right-of-way closing. Apologize for my own technical errors there. So if the developer would come forward, please. The project engineer? All right. Would come forward? Yeah. Well, this was one that we originally had to vote on to set the public hearing.
Okay.
When I
was almost right.
There you go. All right, if you would just state your name, and then if you have a brief, and we'll do that. And if you have any questions, then we'll have
Jeffrey Cornegi, BR Cornegi Incorporated. We're the engineers, surveyors for the project. This is pretty much closing of the right-of-way that was established in 2012, I do believe, when this project first got started. So instead of being a public street, it's just going to be a private driveway, as Mr. Helmer suggested. So that's really the only purpose of doing this.
Okay. Council, any comments or questions for the engineer, Mr. Carnegie? All right, hearing none. If you'd have a seat, we'll open the public hearing, and if any questions arise, then we'll ask you back up. So with that, everybody, we will open up a public hearing, item 5.2 on our agenda, the Shannon Avenue public right-of-way closing. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak, please approach the clerk. Just a second, and you'll see the timer pop up on the screen. It's a little bit different. And for those watching at home, if you'd state your name for the record once Ms. Getz says we're good to go.
Carl Martin.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. In the August 19, 2024 City Council meeting agenda, item C, there is a copy of a diagram made by BR Carnegie Incorporated for the proposed construction of a service station at the corner of New Hope Road and Kyla Best Road. The copy of the diagram is hazy, but by enlarging the copy, you can see that there was a plan by the city to extend Sunset Drive from where it currently ends all the way to Kyla Best Road, and that's in Exhibit A. And you'll note that in Exhibit B of the enlarged section of BR Carnegie's Incorporated diagram, they identified the section of the city plan road that ends at Kyla Best Road as Sunset Drive, not Shannon Avenue. Note that in Exhibit A, there is a city planned road which is highlighted that ends at New Hope Road. By enlarging that section of the BR Carnegie Incorporated diagram, you can make out that that city planned road off of the Sunset Drive extension that ends on New Hope Road and it is identified as Shannon Avenue. And you can see that on Exhibit C. It appears that the petitioners have mistakenly requested a permanent disclosure of Shannon Avenue from Kyla Best Road, 297 0.96 feet to its terminus when they should have requested a permanent closure of the 297.6 feet of Sunset Drive from Tyler Best Road. And you can see that in Exhibit 7. I'm therefore requesting the council agree to deny the petitioner's request as it is stated. Any questions?
Thank you. All right. Anyone else to come forward and speak on item number 2? This is a public hearing for the Shannon Avenue right-of-way. If you give us just a second, let our clerk get it queued up, and then if you would, as always, just state your name for the record for those watching at home.
His name has left me all of a sudden.
If you'd state your name.
My name is Dr. David Craig.
Thank you.
All right. All right,
I
give us
apologize. I forgot
give us
your
just
name.
1 second.
Okay.
All right. If you would please proceed.
Yes, sir. I just want to voice a concern is that if the road in question is closed, it seems to me that that would basically remove an entrance and an exit to the adjoining or adjacent neighborhood. Basically, in the neighborhood where Councilman Roderick White lives. That way, what I'm saying is, you can get off of that, you can get into that neighborhood the other way, but if you close that road, there's houses right there that won't have an access unless they go around the other way and come off of, what's that? I'm sorry.
Harding Drive.
Harding Drive, right. You would have to come in through Harding Drive.
You'd still have Kyler Best. You'd still have Kyler Best Avenue.
But let's let him have his time, and then we'll ask any questions.
That was my understanding, my only concern. So, all right.
All right. Anyone else to speak? Please come forward. All right. Second. I final call those wishing to speak on the public hearing item 5.2 on our agenda, the Shannon Avenue public right-of-way closing. Anyone to speak, please come forward, approach the clerk. All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing for 5.2. Mr. Helmer, if you would come forward, and we'll probably have to pan backwards on the slides. I just want to be clear on exactly which piece of right away we're discussing, because right now what we're talking about is a piece of, there's no road there, it doesn't exist.
So
is the name just duplicated in different records?
So I think this was when I researched it, what I found was that there was some properties, this thing got recorded in a strange a peculiar way, and so there was never, the right of way was never constructed. And now the way planning works nowadays is that we do not record the right of way until after the improvements are constructed. So, but that's just a little background. So yeah, so there's no improvements made in this right of way. Okay, and as far as the connectivity to the adjacent properties, there was a case that came before you, and it was brought forward that the neighbors in that district, in that neighborhood back there, weren't interested really in being connected to the proposed development. So the development came back with a revised plan that showed this right of way, this road connection not being constructed because they thought that's what the neighbors said at that time they wanted. And there was fear that constructing the road as it was drawn would be a shortcut just to get around that intersection. So that's how I remember it going down. So the neighbors didn't want that connection, therefore the property owners in the city, doesn't. I don't think this planning does not have a preference one way or the other, because I don't think as a connection point that's not really serving all that well, since it kind of would drain that subdivision. Traffic coming out of that subdivision would essentially just come out to a busy intersection, and that's not necessarily ideal. So that's why staff is.
But as of right now, again, there's not a road there.
There's no improvements there at all.
You can't
It's farm.
traverse it
It's
at all
a field.
right now.
Yeah, it's literally a agricultural field. I got a photograph here. So the area highlighted yellow is the actual right of way. So you could see below that is just a vacant farm field. So
is it possible? And then I'm going to yield the floor. Council, I appreciate your patience on this. So the naming in one plat, when it was forecast to be named one thing over another, if and when we get to the point of making a motion, should we make the motion to refer to the meets and bounds of the property as opposed to the
correct,
name?
yes, because
that way we can be crystal clear on what
Exactly.
piece of dirt we're talking about, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Also, from a planning perspective, I would say that to have an outlet there other than a private drive, you're talking about 100 yards from a major intersection with Kyler Best and New Hope, wouldn't be very good. The traffic gets backed up there anyway, so it's not really a good solution to anything.
Even with the impending improvements at that intersection, your point's made. You don't need something that.
But just a question. But aren't they going?
No, go ahead. I was just queuing up.
Hey, go back to that picture, please, sir.
Yeah, the farm field.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So if just make sure I'm crystal clear on this. Once they develop the actual gas station, that's going to be a private driveway to the gas station.
Correct. And will not tie into any existing residential streets behind this development. So all this property just to the south there, I mean, I think it's currently zoned residential now. So you could see the subdivisions to the west connecting to New Hope Road through this property, but it wouldn't tie into what we're calling Shannon Avenue.
But as of right now,
the
site plan is just the entrance to.
Yeah, and right now, what was decided upon was that it was the city and the property owner's best interest to build a shared driveway with the current development and to the property just to the southwest of this property to the left there. So,
as to avoid any questions, and then I'm going to go down the list because I've seen hands coming up. That plan right there that we're looking at right there.
Yes.
Is that the old one?
No, that is essentially represents what was approved with the conditional zoning.
This is not a site plan that is currently on any books for a project today.
It will be, yes, it is currently in review. The conditional zoning was approved by council with the private driveway, and the condition of the conditional zoning was that the right-of-way be closed and the private driveway be constructed.
And not be connected to any of
that is part of the approved conditional zoning, and staff is currently reviewing this for compliance with all other development regulations, and once the right-of-way is closed, then we can proceed to issue site plan approval and construction may begin.
All right, perfect. All right, Councilman White, I saw your hand up. Have you?
No, I was asking. I just wanted to know if that top row was New Hope or Collier Best.
That's Collier Best.
Side is
Perfect.
New Hope.
All right, Councilman Boyette.
I was just going to make an observation that, so the site plan that's here is what we already voted on and approved. So the road closing for what was referred to as Shannon Avenue is just a housekeeping matter so that can move forward. And I don't remember how many years ago it was now, but he's correct. There was a lot of opposition or apprehension expressed from Galinda's Point and Old Farm areas not wanting that to ever come to fruition because the concern was they didn't want flow traffic through the neighborhood. So I think that was why the developer, and I think I know who it was back then, nothing never come of it. So it's just a housekeeping matter now so we can move forward with what we've already approved. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Councilman Matthews.
So I heard it mentioned that we should just focus primarily on the land and not necessarily the name, but as I think it's proper that we should focus on the name as written. And is it is it appropriate for us to either table this until we can edit that, get that application edited, or deny it because it does not reflect the same streets? Me personally, I can't see the documents here, but I would love to see that. And you mentioned earlier that just it was peculiar of how it was documented, which is concerning to me.
On streets that aren't constructed don't get names, right? So how this got centerlined with a name attached to it, that's history that I'm not all that aware of, but it kind of gets messy sometimes with these addresses, and that's why I always try to use PIN numbers, property ID numbers, and meets and bounds as much as possible.
Got it. So in an effort of trying to clean up the mess, is it proper and should we allow for those edits to be made to the current application versus us just saying, oh, we're just going to vote on that, but it's documented as XYZ. So technically we're still voting on XYZ.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. However, I don't know how this got named that way. If this was named by some plan that was approved by City Council, then City Council would need to maybe unname it. I'm not really sure what the process is there. What would be the process for that other than some kind of action by council to unname it? But I still don't understand how it got named to begin with, since there's no right-of-way improvements there. So.
Good. No, go ahead. We got a list going.
May I interject, please?
If you may.
You can vote to close the right-of-way no matter what the name of it was that was previously dedicated. It's just by location of where it is, and you can even say no matter what it was previously named, we're closing this right-of-way that appears on this specific plan, this specific map, and that's sufficient.
And that's what we advertise.
I think that's important to note versus us.
That's what was advertised, this sliver. I think the rest of it was conceptual at one point in time, but this is actually recorded in the Register of Deeds, so that's why we have to close it, because it's an actual public right-of-way.
Complete. Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Well, what I wanted to say has already been said, because there was some confusion about the names, and I understand what you said, Mayor, and like I said, I don't like to echo. I understand what you said about meets and bounds, but I would like to see the names of the streets, and I do understand that, but for everyone else to understand, all of us are not expertise in planning, but we do need to, and it's good to be an expertise in planning, but if someone in planning saw this, they would understand it, but someone, a layperson, would like to see, because I was confused when Mr. Martin and Mr. What's his name?
Dr. Craig.
Yeah, Dr. Craig. When he came, I got confused, and so I don't want anyone else to get confused.
I'm not even I don't really understand what was presented to you. I haven't read it, so I don't understand what the argument was about the name being wrong. I know our GIS is a formal way for the city to track street names and addresses, and this is GIS data, what we consider the best data available. So that's what we used when advertising for this public hearing. And if there's any other history there, I'm not aware of, and I don't.
I want it to be plain so that everyone will understand what we're voting on and where it is.
The issue of what you're voting on tonight is whether or not you want a public right-of-way or a private right-of-way. That's really all there is to it. Now, if you want a public right-of-way, you have to assume once it's built, we have 1 year warranty period, then we can accept it, then we have to maintain that in perpetuity. If we close the alleyway or right-of-way, as we're calling it, the 60-foot right-of-way, then it would be a private drive where they would still have to construct it to certain standards, and they would maintain it. So that's what the issue is tonight. Nothing to do with any street names or anything like that. That's not even relevant, because as a private drive, I'm not even sure they'd have to name it. They might.
It wouldn't be named. But if it was if the project was required to build it as a public street, it could remain there for for however long it takes the property to the south to develop out. And therefore, we've got a public street that's really only serving as a private driveway for this development that's recently been approved. So, you know, that was a lot of the thinking was that, you know, that could be a possible scenario, and it may be in the city's best interest to just allow the developer to build it as a private driveway, especially since the neighboring development showed no interest in being connected, having the streets connected to this particular section here. So.
All right, Council, I'm going to pull us back in order. Councilwoman Taylor, you're next, Councilman Weeks, and then Councilman Boyette. I had y'all queued up in that way. So Councilwoman Taylor.
First, I want to thank Mr. Martin for bringing the name issue to our attention, which is kind of concerning, but I'm going to have to agree with some of my fellow council members that I would think that maybe we need to correct the mistake. We don't need to, even though it is just an, as you say, name, but I think we would need, because this stuff goes down in history as what we vote on. So I would think it needs to be corrected and brought back before us.
Yes, ma'am.
Correctly.
If you're confident there is a mistake.
Even though it is just a piece of land, but I mean the name is wrong apparently.
I don't know that to be true. For that research.
The name isn't wrong,
but it's irrelevant.
Well, let's stay in order. Let's stay in order. All right, Councilwoman Weeks.
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to defer my question to the city attorney. You're stating that legally it doesn't matter what it's named, correct? You can just go just by the coordinate.
You can name it Fred Drive.
You can any name you want to.
The location is what you're talking about closing. You're talking about closing that location, regardless of what it's named, and closing it from a public right of way to making it private. That's all that matters. And as long as it's sufficient for when the planning department, goes in and they do the GIS to close it, then the description specific enough here, showing where it's located. If he has the GIS coordinates, that's sufficient to show where it's located, no matter what you call it. Like I said, you call it Fred Avenue if you want to call it that, but you're closing that piece of property and making it no longer a public right of way. That's the importance.
So there is no mistake.
No.
There is no mistake.
It could be a mistake, but it's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
As to the issue at hand.
All right. Councilman Weeks, anything further? All right, Councilman.
I agree. As the attorney so eloquently stated, there's not an issue here where whatever it was named. I think that a motion can be made to close the right-of-way on the site plan presented by staff that's situated where it is between New Hope Road and Kyler Best Road, and be done with it. I mean, this got made into way bigger an issue than it is. It's just a right-of-way closing. I don't want to hold the developer up. They've been held up long enough for all this stuff. It was a road that never existed. It's something wrote on a piece of paper, and I'm ready to move forward with it.
Councilwoman?
Okay, be clear. Be clear. I'm in support of what is being proposed, okay? My issue is we can sit around and we could talk about, we could care less what it's named. Unfortunately, it came to us as a particular name. So all I'm saying is, let's just rectify that. I'm not saying let that block what it is we're trying to do here today. So to me, we're not making it a big deal. I speak for myself. I'm not making it a big deal. I'm just saying let's just be proper in how we are doing it, because if it didn't matter what the name was, then we shouldn't have requested a name to be put on the application. So that's something maybe the city needs to look at moving forward. So I just want to keep the books clear, because you said the books were a little messy. So in light of trying to clean them up, let's just find a system that works. I'm in support of closing it and doing whatever needs to be done to it. That's not the issue here. I'm just adding a caveat to say, let's just fix it, because it's possible that a mistake was made. Let's just fix the mistake. That's where I'm coming from.
Is it?
So,
Councilwoman, and then Councilman.
So, Mayor, can it be rectified with my motion, clearing that up as far as the name in the motion, saying that we approve it based on we are saying it doesn't even have to have a name, and taking care of it then, rectifying it then? Can it not legally be done that way with the motion?
The motion can be just to close the public right-of-way that exists at that location. That's sufficient. The location is identifiable by the planning department as to what that location is. I think he said he had the GIS coordinates on it, then that's sufficient. No matter what the name is, you have to close the right of way at that location.
Would we, and then I'm gonna yield the floor back. I think I saw your hand back up. Would we need to amend the resolution?
It's not a resolution, it's an order.
Ordinance.
The order permanently closing, would we need to change the title on the order?
Once you make the motion.
Right.
And then approve the motion, then that change can be made by the clerk
Right.
when it's signed.
Right.
Okay, later. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
Okay, that's the way that works.
Okay. So, Councilman Boyd, I see your hand up.
That was also my question. So can someone make a motion to approve this and just simply state the name of the two roads and the site plan and move forward? That way we have covered it. We're trying to close, we want to close
I think again, the easiest way to make the motion is a motion to approve the closure of the right-of-way that exists at, let Mr. Helmer tell you, the GIS location or pointed out on the map. So you can make that part of the exhibit for the motion, so that's identifiable exactly which one he's talking about, because I don't know what the GIS coordinates are.
Okay.
I understand the name being an issue. I understand that. I think it comes from a planning issue from before, that before you come in, maybe the issue doesn't need to be so much what the name of it is, but where the location of it may be, because that did cause confusion. It's understandable. But at this point, you can make the motion to close the right-of-way that exists at where that location is. Mr. Helmer can identify that, and then the motion can pass, and that way everybody knows which one it is that's closed.
So,
Okay.
you still have, right. So, council, is it the will of council that we get a motion on the floor now, or do we want to table this for revisions and then have it be part of the consent agenda at the next meeting?
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve it based on that amendment.
Second.
All right, motion been made and properly seconded to approve with the change that the title will simply be altered to reflect the
Ordinance.
The coordinates. Can we use the? Is there a pen on this one?
Yes, it will actually, you're essentially approving the survey drawing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Is that?
Say that again.
It's the survey drawing. It's created by the engineering firm that the project hired.
Thank you.
All right. And then the title of the yes, the title of the order would also be amended to accurately reflect.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. Council, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further debate? All right. We'll make sure that it is titled correctly. We do want to make sure that we're referring to the exact thing. We don't want to be ambiguous in that in any way. I do agree with that. So with that, hearing no more debate, is there any further debate? All right, hearing none, we'll call the vote.
Can you restate the motion, please?
I had a feeling that was coming. All right. Restating the motion, there was a motion to approve the order relinquishing the right-of-way at the location displayed. Site plan?
That was presented.
That was presented.
At the survey drawing.
In the survey drawing with the GIS location. Mr. Helmer can put that in there. All that is, he can tell you what that is. As depicted on the map.
Because I do have this question for council. Is anybody unclear about exactly which piece of dirt we're talking about? No? All right.
If you state it that way, I'm good.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're all clear on exactly what piece we're talking about, because that's the point. That's the whole goal here. Obviously, we need to be detailed, and I believe that we accurately reflect what's in GIS, but I also want to make sure that everyone here is clear on what we're talking about. All right. Motion is made, properly seconded. It's been restated for the clerk. The title of the order would be adjusted to reflect the motion, and we'll identify it by PIN number. Is there any further debate? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion to relinquish right of way, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. All right. So now, our public comment period. Mrs. Getz, if you would please do what you're doing.
call, Ms.
The vote didn't pop up, is
Our first speaker is Charles Wright.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Charles Wright. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Temp, City Council members. I come before you today to bring up what I think would be a good initiative for our city to look at adopting immediately, which is called a Civilian Advisory and Review Board for Police Accountability. I point out that this is already in place in 5 of our cities in North Carolina with very good results. The purpose of it would be for the board to take complaints, review investigations, make recommendations, and listen to appeals. This would help build trust and relationships between the community and police department. I just would like to point out that police officers can be charged with assaulting a handcuffed suspect. Excessive force can include hitting a handcuffed suspect who is neutralized, continue to use force after a suspect is handcuffed. Just pointing out a couple of the disciplines that can be occurred to that police officer for such conduct would include suspensions, demotions, forfeiture of pay, termination, criminal charges, and civil lawsuits. At this time, I'd also like to bring to you that the fact that we have CALEA in this city, which means we have the gold highest professional force and comply with all 481 standards that have been placed in place. That's been talked about and debated for years and years ago, probably about 12 years ago, so some of you may not even be familiar with that. But that was one of the things that we put in use to help curb behavior as the one that we're looking at that's happened in the last couple of weeks. Some of the things highlights, because it's 461 standards, not all of us are applicable to the city, but some of the things that are highlighted, I can say in that 461 is things like police bias policing, duty to intervene. That means where another police officer see action that another police officer is doing, and they have an action or a duty to interfere and say, hey, Charles, you're getting a little rough there. Why don't you sit back a little? And in fact, I don't want to get into the particular case I'm talking about, but I did see evidence, camera evidence, where some of the officers trying to put distance in between the person who was subduing, and they kind of stood off to the side and like observed. So it's very important that the city council at least try to make themselves aware of what's in the
Mr. Wright?
Yes.
I do have to stop you. We've reached the end of your time.
That's 3 minutes?
Yes,
It
sir.
was. It goes by fast when it's valuable conversation. Your handout, I do want to go on the record. There is a handout that was also produced to.
Wasn't him.
You were not.
That wasn't him. I'm just passing that ahead of time.
I'm sorry. It has his name on. I apologize.
Yeah, this
Was
is
it?
your
Yeah, this
handout.
is him. Okay.
Yeah, we
I
got it.
apologize.
Yeah, we're good.
Got it.
That
Okay.
that will also include. In
Well,
the,
do I have the right to ask if there's any questions or comments based upon what I spoke, or
You do.
do I have that right?
You do if
Okay.
council chooses to engage. They
Well,
can.
I'd like to ask that if any council have any questions or comments they'd like to make while I'm at the podium.
I have a question. Go ahead, though.
Good.
Was just wondering about, we had talked about this a little while ago, that advisory board. What would that look like, and what would be the steps to set something up like that? And it may not be something that you can answer, but definitely a question that I have, because this has been talked about before.
Well, UNC School of Government have about a 15 or 20 page booklet. It's costs $20. I think the city could afford at least one volume of that, but it costs $20. And I have one on order, by the way, but it costs $20, and it outlines everything to keep it legal, how it's supposed to operate, how you get members to be on that board, what's your limitations, what's not your so it's not as hard as it sounds. Sometimes we give big words to things that can be very simple in application. So we do have guidance on that. It's from the UNC School of Government. We use them a lot with our policies, especially at city and town level, so everybody by now should probably be familiar with the UNC School of Government, because there's somebody up there we always calling for advice. And I've known that over 30 years, and I've known some of those people who's still up there for 30 years. So, but anyway, it's a very good program. I think it's a step we need to seriously look at implementing. And it's not saying our police are doing necessarily a bad job or not having confidence in them, but it's saying we could benefit by having another body that may see things more than a different perspective than just the police themselves are going to see about each other.
Was there another question, I believe?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, Pro Tem?
You go ahead.
Okay. I just want to ask a question. So you're saying Durham, Raleigh, Fayetteville, Winston-Salem, and Charlotte all have these boards?
That's correct. And from what I can see, that has been very, very well received by the community. And it also gets people to come in a more relaxed atmosphere when these hearings are going on. It's not as strict and structural as a city council might be or what have you.
I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. My School of Government lady is Miss Wilson. Okay. And, I have her on speed dial. And so there's nothing wrong with getting and understanding and having wisdom. So thank you so much for bringing this to us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is John Barnes.
Mayor Gaylor,
yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Jones, members of the City Council. My name is John Barnes. I serve as the president of the Goldsboro Wayne Branch in NAACP. The Goldsboro Wayne Branch NAACP is calling for transparency and accountability following a troubling incident on Day Circle involving Mr. Tariq Carter. Video footage circulating on social media shows Mr. Carter was already restrained with handcuffs and wearing a medical boot, being body slammed by the Goldsboro Police Department officers. In our efforts to address community concerns, we reached out to Chief West, who informed us that once the investigation is complete, he will be in a position to provide more information. As we remain committed to ensuring thorough and transparent review of this incident, we remind you that the Goldsboro Police Department strategic plan emphasizes key goals as safe and secure community and racial and cultural harmony, which focus on fostering trust through innovative policing strategies, strengthening community partnerships, and ensuring all voices are heard and respected. However, this incident raises concerns about whether those goals are being effectively implemented, particularly in communities of color. As a CALEA certified agency, GPD is expected to adhere to national recognized standards for use of force and professionalism. Yet, what occurred on Day Circle appears to contradict both standards and the department's stated priorities. Considering this, the Goldsboro Wayne NACP is making the following requests of Chief West and the Goldsboro Police Department and the City Council. A copy of the full investigative report that details what departmental or individual officers' failures occurred on or before Tuesday, January 28, 2025, that led to the undesirable interaction between Mr. Carter and the Goldsboro Police Department officers. 2, outline steps the Goldsboro Police Department is taking a plan to take to prevent similar occurrences from happening in the future. We understand that certain identifying information may need to be redacted for privacy, personnel, and security reasons, but the community needs transparency to rebuild trust and ensure accountability. While we acknowledge that law enforcement have a challenging role in maintaining public safety, incidents like this undermines confidence in the police and highlight the need for systemic improvements. We call on the Goldsboro Police Department to hold the standards of model of excellence in government, as well as outlined in their strategic plan, by committing to transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement.
Thank you. And that was the 3 minute. Which we got to work on the dinger.
Yeah, you need to sit down here.
Can you see it on that screen?
No,
see it on that screen.
You can't see it on that.
No, you cannot.
Okay, that was supposed to be
No,
one of the purposes of that screen.
You don't sit
Hopefully
down here.
IT can help us with that.
We will. Thank you. That does conclude the 3 minutes. Council, are there any comments, questions, follow-ups? Mr. Myers, as always, thank you, sir.
Trying to help.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
Okay.
And just as a reminder, if there are any other cell phones, please do make sure they're silenced during the meeting. All right.
Our
Go
next
ahead.
speaker is Justin.
All right.
Our next speaker is Bobby Jones.
Good evening,
Evening.
Mayor and Council. Glad to have this opportunity to come before you this evening. First, I want to thank the members of our community that videoed this incident that occurred, and want to thank Mr. Robert Taylor for his reporting and coverage of this incident. Because without their coverage, our community would have been relegated to just getting the information from the police, in particular as what was shared with their report. You know, I viewed the video, and the officers that were recorded knew that they were being recorded. I tremble at the notion that what would they've done if they didn't think they were being videoed. As a community, we were of the impression that a clear certification would afford us protection and insurance of a protect and serve mindset by our police department. This crime by the Goldsboro Police Department and subsequent possible cover-up by the chief lets us know that's clearly not the case. You know, don't want to bring back any bad times in our history as a city, but I remember in 2017 when our chief came on board and presented his Make Goldsboro Great Again. You know, I clearly haven't forgotten that, and quite a few of the people that I've talked to following up on this situation have not forgotten that. And let's not kid ourselves. Our national
climate is fit for that type of attitude. So we don't know kind of what to expect at this point in time. That's why it's so important to always demonstrate good judgment as leaders. All the members that I've talked to about this incident, they want justice. And their problem-solving process usually goes, if there's a problem in our community, who do we go to first? We go to the police. If we can't get justice at the police, with the police, and we just get more injustice, like this situation, my question to you in parting, it's what do we do? What do we do if we can't get justice with the police?
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is David Elliott.
Good evening. Good evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem. My name is David Elliott. I am resident of District 5, where my city council member is Ms. Beverly Weeks, and I pastor in District 1, where Ms. Hiawatha Jones serves as our council member. I have partnered in numerous ways with those who sit on this council on ways to meet the needs of the citizens of Goldsboro. I'm fortunate and honored to serve on many boards for the betterment of Goldsboro. My church has partnered with many organizations for the same purpose. I say these things not for recognition, but for you to understand that I desire the best for Goldsboro and all of its citizens. On Tuesday, January 28th, what many of us witnessed through social media videos recording the Goldsboro Police Department, we did not see the best of Goldsboro. I understand that many of the officers are new to the department and may not have a full grasp on who we are as a community. Nevertheless, no matter the reasoning for Mr. Carter's arrest, there is absolutely no reason that he should have been slammed unconscious to the ground, needing medical attention. This is a travesty and an indictment to who we are as a community. There are several actions that this mayor, the city council, the city manager, and the chief of police could have taken, but did not. Therefore, in unison with every other voice, person, and organization that came before me and after me, we are petitioning the mayor, the city council, the city manager, and the chief of police to suspend the primary arresting officer without pay until this investigation is complete, as well as demanding that the Goldsboro Police Department take and or retake some form of sensitivity and de-escalation training. One author stated, in every community there is work to be done, in every nation there are wounds to heal, in every heart there's the power to do it. I hope that as the city council that you will have the heart to do what is right. Thank you for your time and God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions? Comments?
Thank you, sir.
Our next speaker is David Craig.
All right, thank you. Let me first say that when I came up and spoke earlier, I misspoke. Glenda's Drive, or Glenda's Point, was what I was confused about, so I apologize for that. At this point in my life, being somewhat retired and able to say exactly what's on my mind, I'm going to let you know what's exactly on my mind. When I was a youth, we had a person that was killed by Goldsboro Police Department by the name of Swan. He was choked to death. They said he swallowed drugs. It was brushed up under the rug. Years later, when I was a bail bondsman, I was chasing a guy through a cornfield over in LaGrange. And the guy who I was with said, "Dave, that's Stoney. That's Stoney." What I'm trying to say is, I had to deal with Stoney that night, although he did something earlier. Years ago, when my son was like 17, he's letting his hair grow out. And I said, "Son, you think I love you?" He looked at me. He said, "Yeah." I said, "Do yourself a favor. Do your father a favor. get a haircut. He's looking at me crazy. I said, son, I said, if the police pull you to the side of the road, and I didn't use this language, but beat you, I said, what you think I'm gonna do? 2 days later, he had a haircut. Now I'm saying this as a man, as a straight up man who don't fear nobody, don't fear no police, the Pope, or the president. One thing I have said, that if you beat me, I'm not going to a judge to get no justice. I got justice with me. And I respect the police. But what ain't gonna happen? So I'm saying this. I'm respectful and I'm a law-abiding citizen, usually. Why? Because I don't want no problems. I don't want no problems. But that being said, we done seen it too much. And I'm letting you know, and I'm putting everybody on notice. The rapper T.I. said it like this: give me a tool and a vest and I can get some respect. That ain't a threat. That's just the reality of where we are as a nation. So while we are listening to lawless people, lawlessness has a price to pay.
Our next speaker is Annette Hobbs.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Again, I say good evening, City Council board members. My name is Annette Hobbs, and I am a native here in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and a graduate of Goldsboro High School, class of 1990. I am the mother of 3 children and the grandmother of 3 grandchildren. The issue I would like to address on tonight is the issue of bullying. I have a grandson who attends a local high school here, or middle school, I'm sorry. And on last week, I received a call. This is the 3rd call that I have received. I received a call on last Friday that an incident had happened of bullying against him for the 3rd time this year. He was assaulted on Friday. He was slapped, he was beat, he was assaulted by another classmate, and he never fought back. And I got the call, and I went to the school, and the sheriff said, "Ma'am, I commend you on raising a very respectful young man. He never fought back. Even though he was being abused and slapped and beat, he only grabbed the hands of the other student to keep them from continuing to assault him." So I stand before you on this evening to let you know that this grandson that I have raised has never, in all of his years of being in school this far, ever been in trouble. He's never been to the office. He's never had a disciplinary action against him at all, and gets pretty good grades. I wanted to bring this issue before you on today to let you know that the school is supposed to be a safe place for our children. They should not be afraid to go to school. They should not have anyone else infringing on their rights to go to school and get an education, and they should not have to fear for their safety. Thank you, board members, for hearing me on this evening. Thank you.
Mayor, that was our last speaker.
And we'll close the public comment period, and we'll move forward with our agenda. right, Mr. Livingston, if you would please present the consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.5 and hear any remaining questions from council.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We have 5 items on the consent agenda, which all have been discussed previously, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about any specific items on the agenda, but normally we take those as one vote and proceed further.
All right, council, the consent agenda is presented. It was released with time for questions. Are there any remaining questions that have not yet been resolved?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Please, floor is yours.
So for the operating budget amendment ordinance for Friends of Seymour,
right, I
would like to see the written contract before we give out any money as the amendments to it. We put in another portion of it for the quality of life issues, and I would like to see that in there before we release money.
It is in there per the motion that it was added exactly as was stated in the motion. Obviously, I'm more than happy to show you a copy of the contract. I'm actually not allowed to sign the contract until we have the funding for it. You know, as a pre-audit issue there, and so. But I'm obviously you can have any of the contracts.
And just to caveat off that, it's just for the remainder of this year. We'll go back to when it's time for budget.
Yeah, this is just for current effort.
I have a question for Mr. Livingston, just for clarity. It's on the resolution for the donation of the personal property to the nonprofit Global Gear Initiative. Did we reach out to that nonprofit, or they reached out to us?
I don't know. I think we've dealt with them before, historically speaking, but that's about all I know.
Was that equipment offered to any volunteer fire departments here locally, or anybody locally in our area, the college, any schools for training or anything like that before? Because I'm noticing that they support like Iraq, some of these places, and I understand that they don't have personal fire gear, but I'm looking locally. Is there any local nonprofit that we could actually support with that fire gear? Any colleges, any any volunteer fire departments that may want the gear before we send it nationally?
I'm not the right one to answer this question, but I will add that it cannot be used in U.S. It doesn't meet fire code anymore, and so it can't be used by a volunteer. Yeah, it can't be used for fire department. Insurance regs wouldn't have. Now, could a college use it to be able to show someone how to quickly get in and out of gear? I can't speak to that. That's not my expertise. But I will just go on record. It can't be used domestically. And Chief Stimpian, if you have any, since you're sitting there, I apologize, if there's any comments that you'd like to add to that.
Good evening,
Mayor.
Evening. So as far as the gear goes, the mayor touched on it. Traditionally, National Fire Protection Agency, 10 years is usually what it's good for. So nobody in the United States that's operating under that can utilize that gear. The gear that we're handing out is volunteer departments are not going to take it because it's so far outdated, and in some instances, they're beat up pretty bad. As far as the tools, some of those are outdated. Our surrounding volunteer departments, I don't want to speak for them all, but they have as much as we do, if not more. And the college, I'm not sure if Chief Holland reached out to them or not, but we deal with Ricky Barnes, who's the fire coordinator quite often, and he did not request any of it. A lot of the nozzles you'll see on the list, those are outdated to the fact that when we replaced the nozzles, the manufacturer asked if they could have one for their museum. So if that tells you the age of them.
And then one more question. Is there a cost associated with shipping this?
No,
fire gear?
They'll come get it, and they'll ship it off themselves.
Council, any other comments or questions on any item on the consent agenda that has not yet been resolved? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.5 as presented?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. All right, motion's been made and properly seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Madam Clerk, if you please do a roll call vote.
Mayor Gaylor?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jones?
Yes.
Councilman Boyette?
Yes.
Councilwoman Taylor? Yes. Councilwoman Matthews? Yes. Councilwoman Weeks? Councilman White?
All right, consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.5 are approved. And yes, for clarity, and just to reiterate, the contract that was referenced by Councilman White will absolutely be provided to Councilman White as well as the rest of council prior to but it does mirror exactly the motion that was made for clarity. All right, we'll move to item 8.2, a resolution for economic development positioning statement and report. This is coming back to us after the retreat. Mr. Livingston, if you'd please guide us through. Or Mr. Arnold, however you want to go.
We have Kelly's that's going to brief us on that, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Arnold, if you'd please come forward.
Mayor, Council, good evening. This is the item that you talked about at retreat. It started in October of 2024 at a meeting where we had the folks from the Department of Commerce come in and talk to you about what their services are and made a recommendation after some discussion about going forward on a visioning statement forum. You all agreed to that, and that was conducted in December. A few of you participated in that. It was a good representation of the community that participated in that. And attached to this document is a report that came out of that was then reviewed during the retreat. And it talked about what was kind of some of the themes that came out of that forum, some of the things that were heard, and what we may want to proceed on in the future for filling in some of the gaps of what we need in economic development, business development. You brought forward that topic a little bit earlier in the meeting today of a need, and I think it is a need. And it's been very obvious to me that there are some things that we just don't have presence in as an organization that we could be doing more to present, for developers, working with development and economic development. And so I think this was appropriate to do the study, and now here we are tonight adopting this study and adopting a statement that reads, the city of Goldsboro is a strategic gateway between the coast and state capital. It serves as a thriving hub where agricultural, natural defense, and transportation converge to fuel the economic growth and business development. With a deep-rooted heritage and cooperative spirit, we are maximizing our assets to foster resilient, suitable economy and enhance quality of life for all. Goldsboro is where the dreams take flight and people and businesses grow. And so we'll take this report and this resolution and support and now move forward and bring back some recommendations, including potentially a budget consideration for moving towards a strategic planning effort that will kind of flesh these out a little bit more and ultimately may lead towards some decisions on how we can have better presence in economic development with the city of Goldsboro. So tonight you have this resolution in front of you. It's ready for your adoption.
So council, the resolution that is part of the agenda packet is basically just asking us to adopt a resolution that adopts the vision statement as Mr. Arnold just read. It's in your agenda packet. Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution as presented?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and properly seconded to adopt the resolution as presented. Is there any debate? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. And keep up the work on that. Obviously, this is not the vision statement is not the goal of the study. The goal of the study are some actionable metrics. And so I appreciate your guidance.
Your next discussion will be in the budget.
Perfect. All right. Perfect. Thank you. All right, council, we'll move to item 9.1. Mr. Livingston, if you'd please walk us through that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. As we kind of touched on tonight, our comprehensive land use plan, which is one of the most critical documents a city can have, is 12 years old. The best management practice on that, I think it's at least 12 years old, right? Is usually to try to update those every 10 years, especially when you're in a situation like we are with growth. And so we went through the process, did an RFP, and internally selected folks on the RFP to review some of the qualifications of the different folks that do this type of work. And Kimberly Horn was the one that was recommended as a selection, and I'll have Mark explain any other details of that, but we're at the point where we're ready to get started with them. This is budgeted within the current budget year, so I'll take any questions, or Mark can take any questions. And there's also some things that we need from you tonight that Mark's going to get into.
Thank you, Matthew. So City Council authorized planning to seek proposals for a new comprehensive plan back in September 3rd of 2024. We did receive 4 proposals to include a proposal from Insight Planning and Development, Inspire Placemaking Collective, Stewart and Kimberly Horn Associates LLC. We created a comprehensive land development plan selection committee who was formed from interim city manager Kelly Arnold, myself, Community Relations Director Felicia Williams, and Assistant Planning Director Kenny Touton. The selection committee graded each proposal based on their experience with developing successful comprehensive land use plans for other communities, their understanding of the project scope and effective proposed work plan, qualifications of key personnel, and the ability to complete the project within a specified time frame, the total cost of the project, and lastly, an innovative engagement strategy and deliverables. Based on these criteria, the selection committee unanimously voted to recommend Kimberly Horn Associates LLC. As far as the relationship to the budget, the comprehensive land use plan will cost a total of $175,000, which the plan is partially funded by a commitment by City Council of $87,500 to be allocated with the 2024 adopted budget, and an additional $87,000 commitment will be required in the 25-26 adopted budget. This, in relation to the strategic plan relationship, this new comprehensive land use plan can be considered an essential element of a wider strategic plan and will serve the City Council, City Management, and planning staff in helping guide development in a direction that will complement the greater overall goals and objectives of the city. Therefore, the Planning Department recommends City Council adopt the resolution authorizing the City Manager to sign a contract with Kimberly Horn Associates for $175,000 for the creation of a new comprehensive land development plan for the City of Goldsboro. I would like to also the associate from Kimberly Horn, Jonathan Whitehurst, is present, and he would like to give a brief presentation, and then he'll answer any questions you may have, and I will also be available as well. So, thank you.
Good evening.
Welcome.
He said a key word there. He said brief, and so I promise to hold up that end of my end of the stick there and keep it brief. Not because this isn't important. This is an incredibly important plan. It's an incredibly important task for you all to take on, for the community to be a part of. I'm going to be brief tonight because we're going to be back in front of you all, back in front of your planning commission multiple times throughout this process. And so we're going to ask you to roll up your sleeves along with the community to be a part of the development of this plan. By way of introductions, there we go. There we go. By way of introductions, you may or may not know a whole lot about Kimberly Horn. Kimberly Horn is a national firm. We've got offices all over the country, but we're headquartered right here down the road in Raleigh. And so we're very fortunate to be a member of the North Carolina community, and we've done quite a bit of work here in Goldsboro and in Wayne County. I'll be the project manager. I'll be surrounded by a strong team of subject matter experts. So when they come to me and ask me about water or wastewater or roads or the things that I probably shouldn't speak on behalf of as an expert, I have those folks just down the hall from me that can speak to this. The comprehensive plan is just what it says. It's a comprehensive plan. And so we are going to be looking at all aspects of the community that you all create. By way of the process, though, we're going to ask the community, we're going to ask stakeholders to be a part of this process from day one all the way up through the adoption process. We're going to start with a compelling brand for this. You might remember that your current plan is the Envision 35 plan. We're going to make sure that we create a compelling brand that captures what we're trying to achieve with this particular effort. We want that brand to be the face of the project during the development of the plan, but also to exist in the future as things are being implemented, and you will see a strong emphasis on implementation. We also want to make sure, as part of the community engagement process, that we're meeting people where they are, that we're making this an accessible process, that we make it comfortable for people to join the planning process. For those people that want to take a survey while they're sitting at the dentist office, we'll make that available to them. For those that feel more comfortable meeting in person, we're going to make sure that we have multiple community workshops throughout this process. We are going to form an advisory committee just for the creation of this particular plan. And that'll be kind of our sounding board as we go through this process. But we want to make sure that the folks on that advisory committee wear hats that are representative of the community. And in some cases, we hope that they'll wear multiple hats so that we can keep that size of that community or that committee to be a little bit more manageable. And so what you see here is just kind of an overview of all of those engagement activities that we're going to do throughout this planning process. We're not engaging just for the sake of engaging. Everybody that puts a dot on a map or answers a question on a survey, we're going to capture them as a participant, and we're going to capture that input as data that we're going to hold on par with the technical data that we'll collect throughout this process. Because at the end of the day, for it to be a community plan, we need to point back and show people the influence of their participation and how it gave shape to the overall plan. So I mentioned that community engagement is going to exist throughout the planning process. Real quick, the way that the planning process is going to unfold, in that first task, project initiation and management, we're going to get out of the gate, make sure that we have the data, that we have a sound process, that we're very transparent with the plan that we are creating. Baseline conditions, we're going to do our due diligence in terms of understanding how the community is growing, changing, looking at demographics, looking at the economic development issues that are arising. We're going to craft a set of vision and guiding principles to guide us in the creation of a future land use strategy. That future land use strategy will be like the future land use map that you've heard a lot of mentioned tonight, and I'm sure at all of your other meetings. But we can't stop there. We've got to wrap that land use strategy with various plan elements and implementation strategies. And then ultimately, in hopefully 12 to 15 months, once we get going, we'll be back in front of you all for adoption. So the path to the future land use map, that future land use map is going to be kind of the capstone product of this entire process. We're going to take the community characteristics, the understanding of what kind of makes Goldsboro click. We're going to make sure we have an understanding of the vision and guiding principles. We're going to create a conceptual growth strategy, high level, and then eventually we'll get down to the future land use map where we'll be looking at parcel by parcel in terms of what the future land use strategy should be throughout this study area. I mentioned we can't stop there. Before I do that, we just finished the plan in Morganton, so this is just an example of what that future land use map looks like. But I did want to say we don't want to stop there. We want this plan to be actionable, and so we will create an implementation strategy where we talk about who should be tasked with a particular action, what is the time frame for completion, what are some of the time and money resources that will be required, and then ultimately kind of have a blueprint for you all to take action moving forward. So I know brief is can be conceptual or whatnot, but that's my presentation, and happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
All right, Councilman Boyette, I saw you had your hand up. Is there anyone else that has comments, questions for the presenter? All right, Councilman Boyette, if you'll lead us off.
Quick question for the presenter, and then I was going to make a comment. The question was, do you remember or do you know if you guys, your company did our last one in 2012?
We did not do that. That was done by a Holland Consulting Planners.
Okay.
Yep.
I couldn't remember. That was the only question, and I was going to make a comment if when others are done.
And I will say that it's important to note, we know that we're not starting from scratch, right? You've got that plan, you've got your transportation plan, bicycle pedestrian, you've got a lot of previous plans. Your strategic plan is a great place to start. Right. And so when I talk about the baseline conditions, we're going to take a look at all of those things that you've done to this point.
And I've been speaking to this for some time since this conversation started about the need to fund this and how important it is, because when this plan is updated, it makes our job as elected officials easier to do, because our document that we have for guidance is up to date. And so, and I'm familiar with the process, because back when the last one was done in 2012, I was the chairman of the Planning Commission and also was asked to chair the CPAC, which I don't know if it still carries that name, the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee. Mm-hmm. So I'm sort of familiar with all that process and looking very forward to it. And a few people have asked me, and members of the public, about what that was when they saw it on the agenda, when people were looking at it. And I pointed out that sort of the way it relates, it's almost like it relates to what happens with property tax. So when you have a reevaluation, the property tax reevaluation's done, and then it's not done again for 8 years. Every year that goes by, it's a little further off than it was the year before. So when you have a reval, just like when you have a comp plan update, we get fresh material, and it makes the job of the elected board a lot easier when the material's fresh. So I know I and a lot of other people are looking very forward to this being done.
Yeah, and I meant to mention, like, the comprehensive plan is not regulatory in the sense that it's not changing the zoning that you hear a lot of conversations about. In a lot of cases, it makes sense to get this land use vision on paper, right, and then to circle back and make sure that the development regulations itself respond to the vision set forth in the plan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Council, any other comments or questions?
I have questions for Mr. Helmer.
All right. Mr. Helmer, if you'll come back up.
I just want to, for clarity, verify that the full $87,500 was put into the 2024-2025 budget.
That is, yes.
And also, for bid purposes, my next question would be, there were 4 individuals that bid on this project. You did not, no information was given to us on the other 3 bids. I want to know, this bid is $175,000, how that pricing compared to the other 3 bids.
Okay, one bid came in almost twice what our budget was for this project. So, you know, that was kind of worked against them. Another project came in just under, but they didn't fare as well with the questions, and the reviewing committee was not overly impressed, if you would, with some of the responses to their questions. It really came down to 2 applicants and they were both priced reasonably the same, and we ended up, it was really close. We ended up doing an interview ultimately with both of the candidates, and after those interviews, the committee decided that the recommendation would be to hire Kimley Horn and Associates.
Any further questions for Mr. Helmer or the representative from Kimley Horn? All right.
Chris got my answers.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. All right, and council, this one is already budgeted for. We included this as a line in the current FY budget already. So that piece of it is taken care of, as was pointed out very wisely just a moment ago as well. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Kimley Horn and Associates for the creation of a new comprehensive land development plan?
So moved.
All right, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to approve the resolution as presented. Is there any further debate? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. This is a good thing. I'm excited to get to work on this. Madam Clerk, Mr. Livingston, we're going to need an advisory committee.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So.
If it's what I would like to do, I have the under our charter, I have the authority to create ad hoc committees. So what I would like to do, council, is have every member of council appoint 2 people from their district. To get an odd number, I'll appoint 3. Just full disclosure, mine will probably be more of the folks that have an official title either with the city or with county planning. And so that way we ensure that every district is represented equally, and we're able to provide good quality feedback. I think that makes sure that we get every corner of the city touched there. That would be 15. Is 15 a reasonable number? Is that too many? Is that too small? Is somewhere in the ballpark? Okay. All right. So council, if you would go ahead and be taking a look at your districts. Let's see if we can get 2 folks from each district, and then I'll be working with anyone. And if you already have somebody that I was going to appoint, I'll make sure I yield and give you an additional spot, and I'll appoint that one or something like that. Either way, if there's any questions, give me a call. We'll work it out to make sure that council gets the full value of those appointments.
I was just going to add.
And would you come back to the microphone for us?
I was just going to add, if it's helpful, I can provide some information about what the expectation is for those committee members and kind of what the commitment will be for them as well.
Perfect. If you would provide that to the clerk, and then Madam Getz, if you'd please, or Mrs. Getz, excuse me, Madam Clerk, if you'd please, then share that with council. But council, as you're thinking about it, let's go ahead and start trying to tap 2 people per district and get this thing moving.
Sounds great.
Perfect. All right. Yes, sir.
Just
be quick with
for
the
sake of mentioning, when the I guess the mayor and everyone assembled that last one there, and I don't remember if it was brought from a district or not, but the chairman and one other person from the planning commission was added to that, just so that element was there. I don't know if that's something you want to consider, or if we want to use one of our district appointees for that. But I do think it would be important for.
No, if you would focus these appointments on people that live, work, and play in your districts.
Okay.
And I realize that's kind of difficult because you want to represent both someone that works or runs a business or whatever in your district, as well as someone that lives there. However you want to do it. If you want to focus on the residential from your district, we'll work it out. But those folks that are on planning, and I do want a representative from county planning as well. We're going to make sure that those are engaged regardless. But I want to make sure that council has full authority to appoint a couple of folks from their individual district that they believe aligns with future vision for the city. Sound good for right now?
Yep.
Madam Clerk, clear as mud? All right. And we'll go back and watch the video and figure out what I just said. All right. So with that, Mr. Livingston, if you would please deliver your report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple things. We're still having talks with Fremont and Eureka. Got a couple more meetings coming up in the next few weeks. Trying to work out some details. We've been monitoring flows from Eureka to our station, and to kind of give them feedback on what their flows look like coming into us. And we're still having to try to iron out the details because, as you know, Fremont has said that as of, I think it's March 22nd, don't quote me on that, their agreement with Eureka will no longer, it'll cease to exist. So I've shared what our agreement looks like with Fremont, with Eureka officials, and we're trying to work this out so that we don't have an issue there at the end where there's not an agreement in place. And one of the things that's very important about this is that with the repairs that are going to be taken on at Eureka, we need to make sure those repairs get done right, because I don't feel like the city needs to obligate itself to taking in a lot of I&I. And I've made this very clear with the state that these, before we sign any kind of agreements, long-term agreements with them, we have to make sure that we're getting a system that's been repaired and replaced. And so as we've mentioned about that, we want to make sure we want to be an active player in that with the WCDA or even managing the grant if at all possible. And our raw water intake projects are going along on schedule. Maybe it'll get pushed back with the weather, but I appreciate the change order there so we can go ahead and get the preventive maintenance done and not have to worry about having a secondary mobilization charge there. And finally, it's with sort of a heavy heart, we announced that Felicia Williams, our Community Development Director, has resigned. Just wanted to publicly thank her for all the work she's done and the great things that she's accomplished. But we wish her well. Sorry to see her leave. And that's all I've got, Mayor.
Me too. She was a vital cog. I wish her well and her family well as she focuses on family. All right, we'll move forward with council member comments. It is the second meeting of the month. As is tradition, we'll begin with representative from District 6, Councilman White. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. First, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity will host a Kappa League interest meeting for our young men at 10 o'clock at Wayne Community College in room 214. Kappa League is a mentoring program that's all year round, and it's something that our community really needs. So if you have anybody that's interested, please have them come out to on Saturday at 10 o'clock, Wayne Community College, in this room 214. Also, the Kappa Leaguers will be going down to Greenville to a symposium where they meet up with all the Kappa Leaguers in North Carolina, and they will begin to go. They'll go to different activities to expose them to different things so they can grow outside of their box. We celebrate 14 young men at Dillard Academy who made the principals list, so I salute them. Coffee, clergy, and councilmen will be tomorrow at 10 o'clock at St. James AME Zion Church with Pastor Elliott. There was a Black History event this weekend at the museum. Excellent program, and I find it refreshing that used to be the USO back in the day when we had the Army Airfield, and blacks wasn't even allowed to go in the building. So to have a Black History event there was awesome and refreshing. Going forward, I do think that we have gotten better as a council with our communication skills with one another, but I would like us to try to take a look and consider our citizens when we begin to make decisions, and not just the business aspect, because what I've learned is that all money is not good money, and all businesses are not needed in certain areas, and it could be more productive for the city in other areas and still do the same thing as to grow our tax base. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Weeks, the floor is yours.
I just had one comment I wanted to make in honor of Black History Month, and this is by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. I just want to thank everybody who comes out week after week when we have our council meetings, and you come and you share from your heart. You ask questions. Asking questions and speaking sometimes is not very popular, but you do it. And so I want to say I'm grateful. I also want to thank this council because over this last year, we have faced some very tough situations. And I'm grateful for a council that is intentional and willing to face the difficult situations and say, now let's work together to come up with resolutions. So I'm extremely grateful.
Thank you. Councilwoman Matthews, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to those who came out and spoke tonight. I appreciate your advocacy and, more importantly, your vulnerability that was put on public display for everybody to see. It does matter and it is important, and I do want to thank you for doing that. And I want to encourage you not to grow tired. Take it from me. Don't grow tired. It's always the right time to do the right thing. And I hope that the petitions that came from the community members do not fall on deaf ears. See, because saying and doing is two different things, and I think it is high time that we do something. So make sure that you continue to hold us accountable for doing exactly what we said we was gonna do. Quick reminder to my beloved District 4, our conference call is gonna be Thursday, February the 27th. So make sure you are tapped into the Councilwoman page to get those notifications and all the call-in details. I love you and good night.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, floor is yours.
First, I would like to say that it was an honor to represent the city of Goldsboro in the absence of our mayor at the historic National Washington Cathedral for One Nation, One Peace interfaith service, unifying through nonviolence and building communities of trust. And it was hosted by the International Stop the Violence and International Torch for Peace. And Dr. Coney was the one that organized it. And it was excellent, and it really put a spark under me as well. I've always had a spark, but that just to see all the clergy and to see all the elected officials, law enforcement, the firemen and the military there in one accord. And I would also like to say that the Divine Nine was in the house, and Deltas led the charge, and the Capras were there, and even the social, it was just really awesome. It was also very historic because that is the very cathedral that Martin Luther King spoke his final sermon. It was also where President Carter was laid to rest. So it was really an honor to go, and I'm really glad that I had the opportunity and the experience. And I would like to thank the fire department for an excellent job of how they handled the fire on George Street. I want to thank them so much. An announcement, we will have our community watch will be February 25th, 2025 at 4 p.m. and it's going to be at West Haven. And this is an opportunity where all of District 1 comes together. And it has been great because we have unified in that area, because now a lot of people know that they're in District 1. We had people at Spring Gardens and Lane Tree and Isler Street. They were not aware that they were in District 1. But if you're going to come, please let me know, because Policeman Artist is going to be there doing some safety tactics. So we'd like for you to be there. Our district meeting for District 1 is going to be potato soup and a chat. Stay tuned for the date. The location will be announced also. I want to commend the event on Saturday, James and Pine Street. It was excellent, and I really enjoyed being there. I would like to say that trust is hard to come by, but it is so easily lost. And we as a community have to begin to trust again. I would like to thank every person that came up and spoke about the incident. We hear you. I still stand on my comment. I am not going to repeat it. I'm sure that everybody know what I said, but I'm still going to stand on the comment. We need to be safe, feel safe, even when we are being arrested. I would like to say to my constituents on Center Street, I did get in touch with the North Carolina Railroad, and they are working. They are going to work with us. I also want to thank Matt for reaching out today to them. They're going to be working with us. I do want all of Center Street to look good, and so they are going to be working with us. For the young lady whose son was being bullied, I apologize to you, because I do understand about being bullied. The Continental Societies do visit several schools and talk about anti-bullying. And it's very, very difficult. And if you don't have a strong mother or a strong grandmother, that child could end up hurting himself. So I commend you and thank you for coming to this council, telling us about it, because now we know, even though we are aware of some, and you know, children bullies grow up to be adult bullies in schools and in their workplaces. So we need to start young and teaching them not to bully. So thank you so much for coming and sharing that with us. There was another thing that I wanted to say, and I'm going to say this. I'm going to continue to say it until we all learn it. And this is Carter Woodson. He is one of my favorite authors. He wrote The Education of the Negro. And it says, those who, I know y'all are tired of hearing this, council. Those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from teaching of biography and history. Our history is American history. Our history is world history. We are in that fabric, and we must make sure that all the children know it. And thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Councilwoman Taylor, floor is yours.
Just a few things. First of all, I do want to say that I'm excited about the comprehensive land development plan that we're doing. As Councilman White stated earlier in the meeting, there are plenty of areas in the city of Goldsboro that desperately need to be developed. I really hate that I missed the event at the museum this past weekend. I planned on going, but then realized that it was also at the same time as my sister's 55th surprise birthday party that we had planned for a long time. So I really heard that. I hate that I missed it, but I heard it was great. I also want to take a moment to express my gratitude to all the speakers who came tonight and shared their thoughts on a wide range of very important issues. We definitely have citizens that come time after time and give us good, informative information. Your input, along with the voices of everyone that you represent when you come up here in front of us, is truly valued. Ms. Hobbs, who's a personal friend of mine, I've known her for a long, long time. I want to acknowledge your courage in speaking and coming up here in front of us and speaking about your grandson's experience with bullying. Bringing this issue to the forefront is crucial, as we all know that bullying, amongst many other things, should never be tolerated. Every voice that comes here matters, not only to me, but I'm sure to the entire council as well. The engagement and the advocacy that all of you bring when you come up here and you speak, it shapes the work that we do and the decisions that we make. I also wanted to announce in District 3 that we have a neighborhood watch meeting at the T.C. Coley Center every month, the first Wednesday of the month, starting at 5:30. I really would like to advocate for anyone in District 3, if you're interested in starting a neighborhood watch, a smaller neighborhood watch group on your own, to please get in touch with me so I can help you through that, as we need, to do more of that. But in the meantime, if you're interested, please come. T.C. Coley Center, first Wednesday of every month at 5:30. That's all I have.
Councilman, floor is yours.
Thank you. As has been echoed by those before me, thank you to everyone that come forward and spoke tonight. As has been pointed out, that's not always easy. And we all appreciate hearing from each of our citizens and what your concerns are. Your concerns should be our concerns, and it's nice for that participation to happen in that regard. As always, thank you to all of our hardworking city employees. We appreciate each and every one of you. As I say every week, this city could not run without you. We are simply the elected body that sit here. Those are 500 other people out there doing the work and making things happen. and I sincerely appreciate each and every one, as I never miss the opportunity to point out. I'd like to say a special farewell to our Miss Williams, Miss Felicia Williams. She will be missed dearly. She's a dear friend of mine, and I just would like to say I wish her well in her future as she moves on with the things that she has planned for her. I just wanted to mention that. And also, last but not least, offer my condolences to Commissioner Chris Gurley. He lost his father right here in the last few days, and the service was this evening. And I would just like to extend my condolences to him for the loss of his father. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. I certainly echo the sentiments around Commissioner Gurley. The loss of a parent. Yeah, he has been a champion for his district and has worked tirelessly for the county. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. He and I go toe to toe on some things, and I respect folks that go toe to toe with me on things. And I wish he and his family peace and healing during this time. A few things that have happened over the last couple of weeks that I want to call attention to. The 333rd Fighter Squadron had a change of command on Friday, and this is kind of surreal because Representative Don Davis happened to be in town going and visiting our VA outpatient clinic that day. And when I found out about that, which the person who helped me find out about that already knows, so thank you, we realized, wait a minute, he's here at the same window of time that we might be able to get him on base to be there when the 333rd has a change of command. The reason that's special is because without his work, the work of this council, the work of Friends of Seymour, the 333rd would not exist anymore. And so being able to allow serendipity to take its course, divine intervention, however you choose to view it, that he happened to be here doing something over at the VA outpatient clinic, and the dominoes fell just right that we were able to have him on base, with me at that change of command, to be able to honor the outgoing commander and the incoming commander and their families. That's just a special moment. So I appreciate those that helped me make that happen. You already know who you are, and if you're not watching, you're going to hear about it. Hear me say about it anyway. The land use plan and the business development plan that we talked about in this meeting is absolutely critical. Both of them are absolutely critical. Another thing that Mr. Livingston pointed out to me earlier today, and we talk constantly, is we've really got to, now that we're in a place with our CDBG funding, of course there's some questions at the federal level about what's going to be in place, what's not. We're at a spot now where we can be a lot more strategic than we have been able to be in the last several years. And I'm excited about that and being able to get something in front of council in the coming months to where that we can actually say, let's go after this piece of property. Let's try and leverage funds to be able to do something. I just think it's a positive thing. Next, I appreciate the comments around the potential advisory committee for Goldsboro Police Department. I'm just going to leave it at this. I met with the mother of Mr. Carter and had a very positive conversation. I still appreciate her bravery and willingness to speak to me, and I really want us to revisit the advisory committee for GPD. I think that could be a really positive thing. And I think that's something that we're going to want to talk about here very soon, very, very quickly. Next, y'all know we have another weather event coming up. You don't need me to be your meteorologist, but you need someone to, so take a look at it Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to get a little bit hairy. Two dramatically more important things. The work, actually Councilman White referenced it a few moments ago, but the work that is happening right now, this community wrapping its arms around our youth, around our young adults, is just remarkable, and it's absolutely critical, because I do not want another summer like last summer, and I don't have to go into any details with anyone in this room because y'all already know what I'm talking about. But you don't prevent that in May, June, July. You prevent that now, and I see the work that these organizations are doing, and I'm taking credit for absolutely none of it. I'm just acknowledging the good work that this community is trying to do, wrapping its arms around other members of their community, trying to help, just simply trying to help. And I want to do more. I will always want to do more because I just simply don't want to have another summer like last summer. I don't think I need to say anything else on that. I will close with this. This coming Saturday, the Black History Month Parade down in Mount Olive. I know it's going to be a fantastic event. I look forward to being there myself. Council members, I should have. Yeah. There you go. There you go. I just wanted to put it out there that we will be represented strongly at the Black History Month Parade down in Mount Olive this Saturday at 1 o'clock. So with that will conclude my comments. All right, go right ahead, please.
Okay, there is going to be a Black History celebration and program and banquet. The Carver High School alumni and friends, which I am Carver, and Congressman Davis is going to be the speaker. And it's going to be Friday night at 6 o'clock, and it will be at the Carver Alumni and Friends Banquet Hall on Brazil Avenue. And the cost is $40. So if you can, come on out. Seats are limited, but come on out and listen to Congressman Don Davis and ask him some questions about Friends of Seymour if you want to.
There you go.
He'll be there. So I'm sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. Don't apologize. Thank you. All right, so council, we have now been at this for approaching 3 hours, about 2 hours, 45 minutes. I'm going to recess this for 5 minutes. Then we'll come back in here for nature breaks, whatever else. Then we'll come back in here. There are some matters for closed session, as I understand it, a brief closed session.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion?
If you want to.
We could go ahead and make the motion to go into closed session, have that approved, and then while they're getting us into closed session, we can do our bathroom break.
That'll work. How about that? So, council.
So moved.
There you go. So moved to go into closed session. We'll have a second. There we go. Motion's been made and properly seconded to go into closed session for
potential litigation.
For potential litigation and personnel.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is there any motions made and properly seconded for that? Is there any debate? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in closed session for what I hope will be a relatively
looking favorable.
No, it's not
And it's
looking
supposed to be at Wilmington on Thursday. Not looking favorable neither.
We are on. All right, council, if there is, Mr. Livingston, Madam Clerk, is there anything further to come before council this evening? All right, hearing none. Ron, I need a point of clarification. Do I do a motion to adjourn, or do I just slam the gavel? Which version of Robert's rules? Do what? Motion to adjourn is Robert's rules, right?
Technically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Fair enough. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded to adjourn. That does not have debate. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion passes. We stand adjourned.